Forward. Halt. Left. 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 Right. Your left. 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 Right. Down, down. Down, down.
Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan took the oath like his old man, then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line, while tears streamed from his mama's eyes. They hopped right up on that Greyhound bus, swapping stories. They laughed and cussed, and they talked about the girls that they loved. They made a pact, shined up their boots, got the call before it hit the news. No clue what they were about to do. Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It is Tuesday, the Finish This Fight Hour, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, direct to you live from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I hope your week is going amazing. How's the gas prices? Are they down today from this little Iranian thing? I know they popped up about 75 cents a gallon. I've heard they're back down. I haven't even been out today. So you all get on the messages, get on the comments. Tell me what's going on in your world. I've got an incredible guest today, guys. Had an opportunity to meet him and his wife several months ago. It's amazing. It's amazing the people that are around us that are fighting the battle and winning the wars. And I've got Dr. Torsten Trey. Now, this guy is a whistleblower, if you will, for the last several decades. And we're going to talk about some stuff y'all may not have heard about before. You may not even like hearing about it. You may not even want to believe that it's real. But we're going to talk about the truth of organ harvesting in this day and age and how it's really happening, what's taking place. And I'm going to bring Dr. Torsten Gray on right now, and we're going to have a chat. Dr. Trey, how you doing, young man?
Hi, Glenn. Thank you for having me on your show. It's a pleasure an honor to be on your show and share what I have to share with your audience.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and I just mangled your name because I'm a redneck, and I think I called you Torsten Gray because I couldn't get the two T's out at the same time. But tell me, and my audience a little something about you. You're a medical doctor. Where's your heritage? Where are you from? How did you get involved?
Yes, I'm a medical doctor. I got received my medical training in Germany. I grew up in Germany before I moved to the U.S. And when I was in the process of getting my recertification as a doctor here in the U.S., I learned about a practice that was too unbelievable to believe first. And that was that I heard that in China, the government was taking organs.
You just locked up. If you can hear me, Dr. Trey, check your internet connection. While he's doing that, y'all, we're talking about organ harvesting. It's being committed quite frequently in China. Are you back now?
Yes, I am here.
Okay, so let's talk again. You ran across the organ harvesting world. What happened from there?
Yeah, I learned it in the news, and that triggered in me a decision to change my career, and I was looking into stopping this practice. And it started off with an article with a breaking news in the Epoch Times, and then I followed this practice, the news on this for about 5 months. I got more information and more data, and then I realized Hippocratic oath. So I decided to take on the issue.
We're having some connection issues on your side, Torsten. We caught most of that. So you changed your direction. You saw it on an interview on Epoch Times or a headline on Epoch Times. Change your direction, and now have developed an organization that you're exposing that, from what I could catch. How is this impacting people in the United States and around the world? Obviously, there's a system that's set in place. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So this is very specific to China. In China, they passed legal provisions in 1984, which permitted to harvest organs from executed prisoners who were sentenced to death. And for many years and decades, China was the country that had by far the most executions in the whole world. And you see that the executions were connected with organ harvesting after this. But there are only a limited number of death sentences in China, so they could not expand the numbers. So it hit the ceiling, and it was maybe around 4,000 transplants that they could produce. And then something else happened in 1999. The Chinese government cracked down on the spiritual movement Falun Gong, and the Falun Gong is, think of like a Buddhist Qigong practice. It follows.
We're still having some connection issues, Mr. Torsten. Let me recap that real quick. Take a look at your internet and see if you're having some connection issues on your side. Let me recap that. So you said the Chinese had set up a system whereby they were executing prisoners and harvesting their organs and selling those, but they couldn't keep up. They didn't have enough. They didn't have enough conviction or convicts to execute to meet the demands. Was that what I was hearing from you?
Yes, that's correct. And that's where they combined this bill that was targeting convicted prisoners with prisoners of conscience, which means that those were spiritual practitioners, dissidents, if you want. They didn't follow what the CCP liked to see by practicing their spiritual practice of Falun Gong. So in 1999, the leader of the CCP, Jiang Zemin, he was initiating a persecution, kicking off a persecution against Falun Gong, and he combined the previous law with the destruction of Falun Gong practitioners through forced organ harvesting. Actually, he said 3 principles. He said 3 guidelines. Ruin the reputation of Falun Gong practitioners, bankrupt them financially, and destroy them physically. So this is what the president of China, Jiang Zemin, said in 1999. And this destruction of Falun Gong happened through forced organ harvesting. The physical destruction. They were killed on demand to harvest their organs and then transplant them into paying patients.
So describe to me, because I had until recently not heard of the Falun Gong movement or what's going on in China. Tell me about this. This is a I guess you would describe a religious organization that's growing very rapidly in China. Is that correct?
Yes, except it's not an organization. It's more a movement where everything is available online. For example, you can access this. You don't have to pay. You are not a member of something, so it's not an organization. It's just like a free practice, if you want. And this was introduced in China in 1992. So what happened is that in China, it was very popular to do Tai Chi and Qigong in the parks. Everyone, hundreds of millions of people practicing these practices. And when they learned about Falun Gong in 1992, they immediately realized that this Falun Gong practice Qigong in the park changed their practice to Falun Gong. So within 7 years, from 1992 to 1999, the number exploded. In 1999, it was estimated that there are 100 million Chinese people who practice Falun Gong. So it was a hugely popular spiritual practice. The practice is surrounding the three principles of truthfulness, compassion, forbearance, how to implement these principles in your daily life. And basically it makes people good people, and they were known to help other people in the society. And then you have 5 physical exercises similar to Qigong exercises. So it's very popular. You can read about it in the internet. You can watch a video how to do the exercises, and then you are fine on your own. You can do it on your own or together with others. But it's not a typical organization in our sense. There's no member fee. There are no membership rules. It's just everyone wants to improve one's life, and that alone stood in contrast to the CCP. For example, this, everyone knows that CCP has a Xinhua propaganda ministry. What they do is they twist any news in favor of the CCP. So if you want to put it into one word, they are lying. They are producing lies and spreading lies. So that Falun Gong, in contrast, had the principle of truthfulness. So they are but it's not the fault of Falun Gong to say the truth. It just happens to be opposite. And then if you think of the 1989 student massacre and so many others, the CCP is brutal, ruthless. In the history of the CCP, the CCP killed about 80 million people in different ways.
I've heard for years, Dr. Trey, about Christians being persecuted in the CCP in massive amounts.
As well.
The Falun Gong thing is something new for me, and that's why I'm trying to understand it. And it sounds to me like the CCP, regardless, they're persecuting and targeting people that stand against what they stand for, or don't toe the line, don't follow along. Is that a fair statement?
Almost. The reason why you don't hear about Falun Gong so much is that the CCP pays billions of dollars to suppress any information, any newspaper to report about it. So it's a systematic silencing of Falun Gong. You don't have this impact about Christians. So you get more information about Christians persecuted in China than Falun Gong persecuted in China. Why? Because the CCP is not afraid of the group or of the size of the Christians. They can control them. And for example, there is known that there are a type of form of communication between the Vatican and the CCP, and they make deals. For example, the CCP, usually the Vatican says who's bishop, but in China, it's the CCP who decides who becomes a bishop. Or if you want, so that's a situation. Another case is that China has agreed to publish the Bible in China. So now you would think, okay, it's fine. Now in China you have the Bible, and there's a special translation for the Bible in China. So when they had the situation with the woman who was about to be stoned, then Jesus says, like, who's without sin and can throw a stone at her. So all people left. Okay, but then the Bible in China continues and said at the end, Jesus was stoning the wife, the woman. He was stoning the woman to death. Why? Because he was the only one without sins. So you see, that's insane how they changed this important spiritual religious book, if you want.
Well, that's an important note too when we talk about censorship, and that's taking place in the U.S. in a lot of ways. Hopefully, it's not taking place in our spiritual books like the Bible, but it's taking place rapidly with mainstream media and things like that, where it can be edited and manipulated. There is truth to being controlled. There is truth to being programmed.
Yes.
There is truth to this that's taken place for decades here in the U.S. Now, I'm glad you pointed that out. So let's talk a little bit deeper. So apparently, and I'm going to recap, they began organ harvesting their inmates, found that was something that was absolutely profitable and necessary and good for them, but ran out of inmates, so began to persecute others. And persecuting the group here that you're talking about and Christians and others in their country. Why is it such an easy thing for them to do right now? And tell me about the actual market. How's this being done? And how are we not hearing about it?
Yeah, so, okay, let me go back a step. So when the CCP started to persecute Falun Gong in 1999, they started to take organs from them. And we only heard in 2006 about China harvesting organs from Falun Gong practitioners. So from between 2000 and 2018, the main victim of forced organ harvesting were actually Falun Gong practitioners. It was not the Uyghurs. It was the Falun Gong practitioners, because you compare the number, there are 100 million Falun Gong practitioners and maybe 12 million Uyghurs. And the Uyghurs are only in the Xinjiang province, whereas Falun Gong practitioners are all over the country. So then what happened is, after they have established a transplant industry in China, then there were patients from the Middle East coming, and they were asking for halal organs. That means organs from people who didn't eat pork. So at that point, the group of Uyghurs became a target group, because they are Muslims and they don't eat pork, and they became like the group that the patients from the Middle East would prefer. And that's where, in maybe around 2018, the Uyghurs became a second group, a second targeted group to foster this transplant abuse. However, I want to add to this. When I saw the satellite photos and in the newspapers about concentration camps in Xinjiang province, I was thinking immediately, well, the CCP knew that an overground expansion of the concentration camp will be filmed by a satellite. So I understand that this is more like a bait. This is a bait to the Western hemisphere to say, yeah, hello, here, like a magician, here's the hand, we harvest organs from Uyghurs. So that was an attempt to distract the international community away from Falun Gong. So afterwards, you didn't hear anyone talking about the organ harvesting from Falun Gong practitioners. Everyone was talking about the Uyghurs, and China was okay with that. So China could easily also suppress any reporting in the media about forced organ harvesting from the Uyghurs, as they did with Falun Gong, but they didn't do that. They wanted the Western hemisphere to talk about the Uyghurs, because they know they cannot stop the human rights activists. So what they did is they just gave a bait and a different topic where they could talk about. The CCP couldn't care less about Uyghurs and the Xinjiang province. For them, it's an easy way to, crush it. And what they do is they infiltrate the Uyghur families with Han Chinese, oftentimes military personnel. So that China can control the Uyghurs. China cannot control the group of Falun Gong practitioners because they are resilient over more than 25 years. And that's why they are not afraid about reports about Uyghurs being organ harvested. They are afraid of Falun Gong reports about Falun Gong practitioners are organ harvested. And that's where we have to stop playing according to the rules that the CCP gives us. Yeah, we have to say, okay, we know that about the Uyghurs, but let's also talk about the Falun Gong victims.
Well, and what you're talking about, it's very important for us to pay attention to. So we're talking about a communist tactic. We've known about it for decades. We've known about the manipulation in their media. Here's this hand. Look over here. Don't look over here. And they manipulate that. What's happening right here in this United States of America, when we have 6 corporations that own 94% of all the media, they have the same ability to do that. And that's another thing that Epoch Times, you happen to know the CEO of Epoch Times, and there's other organizations that are trying to fill in that gap. So that's an important thing to pay attention to, the manipulation of media, to watch here, not watch here. Number 2, something you mentioned that I had never heard and never thought about was the boutique style menu of being able to order organs the way you want them. I would like a liver from someone that doesn't eat pork. How do you supply that to me? And that's what was going on. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. So what in the whole world, transplantation works on the principle that you're on a waiting list and you can only get an organ once an altruistic donor passes away and is willing to donate an organ. That sometimes takes 4 years, 5 years. That everyone is expecting that.
We're going in and out again, Dr. Trey. So what I understood is sometimes it takes 4 to 5 years before an organ would become available, and then we lost you. Can you pick up from there?
Yeah, and some other organs maybe altruistic donation, but it's in a different way. In China, it's what we call an on-demand system. The patient, the recipient, comes and says, "I need a liver, I need a kidney, I need a lung." So, and then in China, they deliver that donor organ within days or within 2 weeks, on demand, whatever you want. So the patients from Middle East get a halal organ. In a few years ago, there was a Canadian patient. He traveled to China. He got a kidney within 3 days. And during COVID, there were reports in China in 2020 where they performed emergency lung transplant surgeries on a COVID patient. So, and the report said they got the donor lung within 24 hours. And then there was a race between 2 hospitals. And in March 2020, there are reports in Chinese media that they had 8 lung transplants, and all the lungs were delivered between 1 and 3 days. So that tells you, shows a little bit how this works, this on-demand system. You go to China, you pay the price, and you get the matching organs within days, and that is unheard of anywhere else in the world.
So this sounds like a pay-to-play system, mainly wealthy. What I'm hearing from you, maybe wealthy Middle Eastern, wealthy Arabs, maybe some wealthy people from around the country. I do have a little bit of experience with transplants. I had a cousin that had cystic fibrosis. And in 1991, when I had gotten home from Desert Storm, had finally been approved for a double lung transplant, but it had taken her years. It had taken years to find the right donor. You're telling me they've got a system set up where if you've got the money, you can place an order, give them your type, and they'll go find the lungs for you, or the liver, or the kidney, or whatever. Is that correct? That sounds like science fiction.
It is, and it is unbelievable that this happens in the 21st century. One of our advisors, Dr. Jacob Lavie, he's a transplant surgeon in Israel, in Tel Aviv. He had a patient in 2005. The patient was waiting for a heart transplant, and then one day he came back to Dr. Lavie and said, "Hey, I have an appointment in 2 weeks in China. I get a heart there." And Dr. Lavie said, "That's impossible. How can you predict that you can get a heart in 2 weeks? After all, somebody has to die for you to get a heart." But sure enough, the patient went, scheduled in 2 weeks' notice on the particular day, and he got a new heart. And that's where this Dr. Lavie got very active, and also contributed to a new law in Israel that passed in 2008. So that is just illustrating this on-demand system. In 2017, so just not too long ago, a Korean film team went to China with a so-called the Korean film team went with a hidden camera to a hospital in China. They filmed the conversation, and the nurse on the Chinese side said, the Korean patient pretending to need a kidney asked, "How much is it?" And the nurse said, $100,000. And it usually takes 2 weeks to get the kidney. But if you pay $10,000 or $15,000 extra, you can get your kidney within 2 days.
Wow.
So that just gives you an illustration that it's an on-demand system, and it is completely, it has become a machinery where you can order organs, like on Amazon Prime. You can order organs in China.
Torsten, I can't imagine what kind of a organization that it takes. You're not just talking about people going out and killing people for organs. I mean, we see that happening here in the U.S. Coming across the border, children are being sex trafficked or slave trafficked and organ harvested. We see that. But you have to actually have a system in place in China that knows people's blood types and their tissue types, and targets those people. If they can say they can go out and find you a heart in 2 days or 2 weeks even. How's that done?
Yeah, so you have to know that among medicine, in the medical profession, transplant medicine is considered a very complex discipline, because you need to have a donor, you have to have the recipient, you have only few hours to transplant the organ. The organ needs to be healthy. It needs to be the right blood type. It needs to, in some cases, it needs to have the right size. So there are a lot of criteria, and that's why in the West it takes so long. In order to run this as an industry, it only works if you have a huge pool of potential organ donors. And we know, everyone knows that in Asia, the people are reluctant to donate organs. So it's not so easy to get these organs. So China does this by having hundreds of thousands of prisoners of conscience. And those are mainly Falun Gong practitioners, blood typed. They take the blood, test it, and archive it in a registry. So if a patient comes, they just look at in the archive. It takes a minute, and then they say prisoner 5345X. He has the right blood type. We can proceed with the transplant in 2 days. So you can only have this speed of days or 2 weeks. You can only have this speed if you have everything already in place, and that's what China has. They do this on an industrial level, and this is what you cannot find in other countries. Maybe there's organized crime and they can do it occasionally, but it is absolutely impossible to do this in the scale of tens of thousands of transplants per year.
Well, what we would call a prison system sounds to me like they have a warehouse system.
That's what I hear often. They farm these organ sources in detention camps. It's like farming cattle. They are farming human beings to be harvested. And when they do this, they bring the prisoner to the hospital into the operating room, and just seconds before they remove the organs, they might give high concentrated potassium to make the heart stop, or maybe just apply muscle relaxants to so that the person cannot move, and they take the organ and then transplant it in the neighboring operating room. So it's a horrible situation, horrible situation for the medical profession. It's completely abusing the medical profession, and the organ source, the Falun Gong practitioner, he dies. He's being killed, and then oftentimes, like biohazard, incinerated in the basement of the hospital, so there are no traces. And
we're still having trouble with you going in and out, Torsten, but it sounds to me like what we've got. Well, it sounds to me like what we've got here is an industrial scale, probably military backed, obviously backed by the government of the CCP, that is targeting peaceful people for profit and gain, also to quell any kind of rebellion, and selling them on the open market. Why have we not heard more about this, and what can we do?
Inside, I would say. So what we heard from several prisoners who were in Chinese prisons, but then were released, and who were not Falun Gong practitioners, they told us that regular prisoners are not subjected to blood tests, and they are not being removed all of a sudden at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the night. So the organ harvesting is specifically targeting the
Falun Gong practitioners, who are the peaceful people that are being persecuted in China, correct?
Organ harvesting. So this gives you the idea that this is a very specific forced organ harvesting. So when we talk about organ harvesting, the question is who receives the incentives here. Medical doctors, certainly they are paid, and they get very high pay, almost like an there's a financial incentives for the medical doctors. But then the government, the CCP, has a completely different incentive. For them, the money is not important. It just maintains the hospital system. For them, it's a different incentive. They started the persecution, the crackdown on Falun Gong in 1999. They want to eradicate Falun Gong. And as I said earlier, Jiang Zemin said he wants to physically destroy Falun Gong practitioners. So for them, the incentive is that transplantation is a way to shift the execution from the firing squad, with the firing squad in the field, to the operating room. And no one will ever realize that they are killing and destroying Falun Gong practitioners. So the incentive for the CCP is to destroy Falun Gong in a way that where people don't notice it. So these are two different incentives and why they do it. And why we don't hear about it, it's also clear. The CCP, of course, they know they learn from the Holocaust. The mass killing in gas chambers, that needs to be covered up. So in this sense, the forced organ harvesting is the final solution for the CCP against Falun Gong practitioners. And that's, of course, what they do. They try to stop any reporting, any information about forced organ harvesting, because it would be disastrous for the CCP if this final solution through forced organ harvesting would become common knowledge in the world. And that's basically what you are doing now. You are helping us by spreading the word, by breaking the silence. The CCP wants to destroy Falun Gong practitioner because that is the ultimate silence of that movement. And if you have voices like ours who talk about it, who break the silence, that is actually defeating the purpose of the forced organ harvesting.
Torsten, what you've just said to me is even more dastardly, I think, than what I thought it was going to be. No, I can't say I can wrap my mind around it. Can't even understand it. But if it was about the money, if it was about supplying a demand and a need, I could almost wrap my head around it. Not justify it, but wrap my head around it. But what you're telling me, it's not about the money. It's a means to an end to eradicate a people. And
absolutely,
good Lord, that's dastardly. That is evil incarnate.
Absolutely. And that's where we have to inform the people that this is not about a commercial transplant practice and transplant method, if you want, but this is about eradicating, destroying dissidents, people who are not tolerated by the CCP. And there's something here. You see, there's a question of mind and body, and the CCP wants to destroy the minds of the Falun Gong practice, the content, the spiritual practices, by destroying the physical body. So, and they cannot control the mind, but that they can control the killing of the physical body of Falun Gong practitioners. Uh-huh. And that's actually, I know you are very engaged in in exoskeletons, right? You want to help soldiers who lost their legs, for example, to walk again. Right. And that's basically the opposite, where you try to help that the mind defeats the insufficiencies of the body. Yeah. Okay. So in this way, you want to help people that the mind defeats the insufficiencies of the body, and there's a different outcome here. That is it the mind who wins, or is it the body who wins, or basically loses? And right. So I find that there's a very interesting concept here, the balance between mind and body.
Well, I want folks to understand something. I want to make it very clear. My exposure has just been recent. You and your lovely wife invited me to come to West Palm Beach a month or so ago to witness the Chen Yun dance show. I was amazed. It was an amazing show. I had no idea what was involved with it. I am a Christian. I'm a Christ follower, and I have absolute respect for someone that's seeking their way in a peaceful way, that's not corrupting anyone else, is not trying to overthrow anyone else, not trying to take over anyone else. And that's what these folks are doing. And they're being destroyed for it. Why? What is the threat to the CCP, Torsten? What is the threat what is the threat by the folks that are being persecuted? Why? Pick on that.
Yeah, that's some people ask this question. The in a way surprising fact is that there's no intention of Falun Gong to overthrow the Chinese government. There's no intention to be politically involved or so. It is just by the nature of the practice, as I said, truthfulness, compassion, forbearance. It is the nature of the practice that provokes the CCP or makes the CCP feel insecure. Earlier I mentioned the lies versus the truth, the barbaric crackdown on students in 1989 and other killings versus compassion. And if you know, well, you know that in China there's only one party. It's a one-party state. So by definition, if there's only one party, there cannot be tolerance because there's no second opinion. Whereas on Falun Gong, you practice tolerance and forbearance. So they are agreeing that there are different opinions, whereas the CCP does not agree that there's a second opinion, to the degree that they even prohibit religions in China, because any religion would challenge the CCP as the only voice in China. So there is a controversy here, a discrepancy, and almost opposition. But this is not intended by Falun Gong, or Falun Gong does not have these principles to antagonize the CCP. But the CCP perceives it as if the Falun Gong antagonized the absolute rule of the CCP. And that's why the CCP cannot rest until Falun Gong is destroyed, because the nature of their practice is almost like a perfectly clean mirror, is just reflecting the evilness of the CCP, and they cannot stand it. And that's why they are so driven to destroy Falun Gong.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because I've been saying this for years. We are in a spiritual battle of a millennium right now in our world, not just in the U.S., but obviously in our world. Folks, evil is real. Evil is real, and it is around us, and it is watching us, and it does not like us if we are not part of its movement. And I think we're seeing that very boldly with what you're bringing out here, Dr. Trey, that there's actually, y'all, this is not science fiction. This is not make-believe. This is not some Stephen King novel. This is a group, a government, industrializing the incarceration of their enemies, who are a peaceful people. My guess is there's not any pushback or fight back. Even when they come to be picked up, they probably just get picked up. It's not like there's a battle. They go and pick them up, put these people into a warehouse type jail scenario. They take their blood, they test their tissue, they categorize them, and put them up on the open market. Y'all, it doesn't get much more evil than that. And if you've heard about this before, I'm surprised, because I haven't heard about this before. Dr. Trey, you've got an organization that you started many, many years ago. I'm going to pull this up and share this real quick. Add this to the stage. Tell me about your website. And this is at the DAFOH.org, y'all. DAFOH.org. What do we got here, and how can people find this and get involved with what you're doing, or at least learn more information?
Yeah, so when I heard about this forced organ harvesting in 2006, I was overwhelmed, and after a few months, I realized this is real. This is really happening. Then I asked myself, what can I do? I'm just a single doctor, a single voice. I won't have the world listen to me. So what can I do? And then I decided to start an NGO, and that was then Doctors Against Forced Organ Harvesting. And with this NGO, the goal was to provide objective findings on forced organ harvesting to the medical community and the public. And we wanted to reach the medical colleagues, but we also wanted to become a hub where medical colleagues can join us and come to us and join us in our mission to inform people. So this is how it started. And At that time, I didn't know where it would end, but I can tell you in 2019, our NGO received the Mother Teresa Award for social justice. And in the past years, we were actually nominated 3 times for the Nobel Peace Prize. So that tells you that we are not alone. There are many other groups and organizations and countries who are on our side to provide more information and to stop this practice of forced organ harvesting. Remember, forced organ harvesting, this is completely unethical, criminal, horrific practice. So if you think about it, which country, which entity would commit that, would perform probably more than 1 million forced organ harvesting cases, right? Who would do that? What is the mind of these people? And that's where it becomes interesting. The forced organ harvesting tells you a lot about the mind of the CCP. So when COVID came and caused this pandemic, I was and that they would do anything.
Losing you again, yeah, Dr. Trey.
Yeah.
There we go. We got you back.
Yeah, when the COVID came, I was just realizing, yeah, this is what they do, and this is.
Folks, I don't think I've ever had this problem. I've done 70 episodes. I've never been broken into like this on the internet. Torsten, somebody doesn't want us to hear you.
Yeah,
let's talk.
That's possibly the case.
It very possibly is. COVID came, you found something and went away.
Yeah, so the forced organ harvesting is, we might think it's so far away in China. Who cares? You can say that, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. So the iceberg also reaches here, us in the United States, like COVID. But even more so, there were 2 biolabs, makeshift biolabs recently in California and in Las Vegas found, and they were doing experiments with viruses. Deadly viruses. They even had Ebola in their makeshift biolabs. Or you hear about the student from China who comes to the Michigan University with a toxic fungus, which could destroy all our agricultural land, all our food supply. Yes. So this is not a simple issue. So you can see that forced organ harvesting is just exposing how evil the CCP is. But they are not limited to China. They are trying to reach us here on our home soil. And there are plenty of real cases. This is not made up. This is not scientific, science fiction. These are real cases with the biolabs and with the toxic fungus. And then we know that there are PLA soldiers who crossed the southern border in the past years. They are in this country.
And we had some right here in Pompano Beach several months ago that were captured coming up on the beach. I know it's real. It's here.
Yeah, it is. So this is where I try to ring the alarm bell. Forced organ harvesting is just the tip of the iceberg, but it actually, the CCP's evilness is also affecting us here on our land, and it's very concerning. The fentanyl crisis was initiated by the CCP by delivering precursors to Mexico. So they were equipping the Mexican cartels with the poison that destroys our people. Yeah, so China is trying in different ways to cause havoc and destruction also here in the US, and that's why by countering the forced organ harvesting in China, we are sending a tremendous signal to China, and the signal is, we learned what you're doing, and that's not good. And we also know that you try similar things to us, to the American people. And that's where I see that our NGO, you asked the question, where we can have tremendous effect by just sensitizing the people, by alerting the people, because forced organ harvesting, this is something that you can understand quite quickly. And there are two things that are now really trying to put a hold to it. Is that once there's a Senate bill, it is 817, Senate Bill 817, that aspires to stop this collaboration with China on transplant medicine and to introduce other measures to stop it. And then there's also a petition that we organized from Darfur with together with the ETAC, another NGO, and that is a petition to the leaders of the G7 countries, and we call it the petition G7+7 because we added 7 more countries to this petition. We write every half a year. We report our numbers, petition numbers, signature numbers to these leaders, and we ask them to take actions on China. So if your audience would want to help, they can sign up onto this website, the petition website, fohpetition.org, and sign the petition. And the other thing is that if you want to speak to your senator, federal senator in DC, and ask them to co-sign this bill 817. So
I want to give people an opportunity to get in touch with you, but I want to reiterate something. I want to ask a question to help me understand. Has there been any evidence of doctors in the U.S. colluding with the CCP in order to get their people transplants?
So this is information that is not verified. But I can tell you, when I was in Pittsburgh, I was talking with 2 established surgeons at the Pittsburgh Medical Center, and they told me of cases where the head of transplant center in a different city, I don't want to mention the name right now, but a leading hospital, a globally leading hospital here in the US. And the director recommended to wealthy people, if they want to transplant fast, they can go to China. We also know that there was another doctor in Pittsburgh. He frequently traveled to China early 2000 to perform transplants in China. So he was actually inviting the other doctor I talked to. He was inviting him to join him to go to China, and the doctor who talked to me, he said he wouldn't do that. Of course not, because he knows where the organs come from. So it just tells you there are in the medical community, in the transplant community, it's a little bit divided. Some people recommend going to China; they don't have problems with China. And others who are completely with us and say, no, this is unethical, this is criminal, this has to stop.
You know, the key word I think you used there, you were talking about the hospital, was a globally recognized hospital. Y'all, this is a global situation. This is not just China, not just the CCP. There are other countries involved. And we're not just talking about organ harvesting. I mean, we've been labeled conspiracy theorists for years, talking about Wuhan and the COVID pandemic virus crap that came from there. We all know. Well, no, we don't all know. We still don't all know, but a lot of us know where it came from and what it was designed to do. And it was a test. I call it the greatest test of obedience the world has ever seen. It was not just a medical test. It was a test of obedience for the citizens of the U.S. and the world. So we're talking about organ harvesting on demand. We're talking about having a menu. People can order what they want if they've got the money. We're talking about Chinese sending people into the U.S. Why the U.S.? Well, the U.S. because we're the bastion of freedom around the world. That's why, and that's also similar to what's going on with the folks that are being persecuted in China, is we stand against the persecution as a people, primarily Now, that's not 100%. We see that right now, but that's what we've stood for 250 years. So they're sending people across this border with viruses and with fungus and with plagues, if you will, with a chance to ruin us. Why? Because we stand against them. So what's going on right now is we are fighting back. People have asked me recently, Dr. Trey, what do I think about Iran? What's going on in Iran? What do I think about what's going on in Venezuela? Well, here's something I have never said publicly. I believe what's happening in Venezuela and Iran right now is strategic to slow the CCP down from being able to militarize and grow their power. Why? Glenn, why? Well, because CCP is primarily dependent upon Venezuela, Iran, and Russia for their energy needs. And if we can stop the flow of energy, we can at least slow down the growth of this power, superpower, if you will, called China. So that's a complete side note, Torsten. I didn't bring you on to talk about that, but there is a battle taking place in our world right now. It's a battle of good and evil. I want to pull back up your website where people can get in touch and learn more about you. I see there's a newsletter to subscribe to. Y'all, while you're on here, pull up a screen, go to dafoh.org, subscribe to the newsletter so you can find out more about what's going on in the world that you had no idea. We're slaughtering people for their organs. Millions of people have been killed in China for their organs, and people in the U.S. and around the world have been partakers of those organs. It's sick. It's not science fiction. It's real. Secondarily, I got a question. What is the Unsilenced? It's right here on your website.
Say again. What about the silence?
The Unsilenced banner. What is that on your website?
That is an independent film. That is more like if you want a Hollywood style movie. But the movie was circulating around this. Circling around the forced organ harvesting. And I thought this film was kind of a realistic depiction of what it means to be in China if you are persecuted, and potentially a victim of forced organ harvesting. So I decided to add and promote that film on our website.
Okay, wonderful. We've also got a QR code here that's going to lead you to a report. Tell us about that, Dr. Trey.
Yeah, this is a QR code to a report that we compiled. It's a summary of our work of almost 20 years of work on this topic. It's an introduction in this topic. It is not academically too dry, too deep. Everyone can understand it, but if you read this report, about 60 pages, big font size, then you get I would say you get a complete understanding of what this forced organ harvesting is and what the threat behind is.
Well, y'all get out your phones, take a screenshot of this, something. Go get this report. How many of y'all are as shocked as I am to learn about this today? I thought I knew kind of what was going on. And Dr. Trey, you've shown me that I really didn't. Like I said, I knew about the children being trafficked. I knew about the sex slavery and the work slavery and the organ harvesting in children coming across our border. Had no idea that people were being targeted and enslaved and put on a menu for their organs. That blows my mind. We've got a few minutes left before we need to jump off of here. Anything you'd like to finish with, young man? The microphone is yours.
If you say you didn't know about it, that is by design. The CCP pays billions of dollars to.
They keep hacking at you, Torsten. They keep hacking at you. I lost you again. They paid billions of dollars. I think we just got you back. Go.
Yeah, they paid billions of dollars so that you don't hear about it. So it is these effects, these campaigns on podcasters that really help to break the silence and to break the billion-dollar control that they impose. And it, you think of this: if we cannot inform ourselves here in the US about forced organ harvesting in China, how much control do they have about our internet, about what we are able to learn about or inform ourselves about? For example, Google. If you are in China and use Google and do a search on the student massacre, you don't find anything. They just censor it. And if you are here, then if Chinese citizens come over here and they do a search, then they cannot believe what they see. Another thing is that the censorship is not only on the internet, but also has reached our medical communities. And that is, in the past, we were renting a booth in the American Transplant Congress, which is a medical congress where about 4,000 doctors come to inform themselves about transplantation. We had a booth rented in the exhibition hall to inform doctors, and the doctors were really grateful for what we did. But last year, they changed direction. They kicked us out of this conference.
They kicked you out of the conference and they cut you off my show.
Yeah, we have paid the organizer for the booth, and then they kicked us out and returned the money. Think about that. They returned the money and said, you are not welcome here in our conference. And they didn't give a real reason. But actually, you have to think about it. It's not us who are punished by this. It's actually the 4,000 doctors who attend the conference who are punished. They are treated like little kids, where the organizer said, well, we know better than you. This is not information for you. This is embarrassing for highly intelligent medical doctors that they don't get the information. And I call it medical censorship on US soil. And that is something we should be concerned about. If there are forces that prevent our medical doctors to inform themselves, what else do they censor?
Well, that's a fact. That's a fact. The big pharma owns the medical schools. They write the curriculum. They're not being taught how to heal us. They're being taught how to treat us.
Whatever. One thing is clear: truth is cut off. We cannot share what we found, our objective findings. We cannot share the truth with other doctors. So whenever you have truth being censored, that is something where all of us should be concerned, because the next step is that there's I say it this way, there's a drug maybe that has side effects, but the company is silent about that.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Trey, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for bringing this information. Y'all, I've said this time and again. How do you find the truth in today's society? It's not on the internet. It's not turning the TV on and watching mainstream. It's going to sources of truth. And I've been blessed to be able to meet some sources of truth. Folks, this is Dr. Torsten Trey, 3-time nominated Nobel Peace Prize, been an MD for decades, has had an NGO for 20 years, has dove in deep to the racket, to the evil of forced organ harvesting. And he's brought the truth to you here today. Go to dafoh.org, sign up for the newsletter, get involved, because guess what? You got a choice now. You know the truth. You know what's going on. Do you just say, oh, somebody else will handle it? Or do you say, that's hideous? How can I help? Well, you can help. There's something you can do. Get up off the couch. Go to your computer. Sign up. dafoh.org. Sign up for the newsletter. Get involved. Again, Dr. Trey, thank you very much for joining. Stick around. I want to talk to you on the backside. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a pretty cool show coming up next week. We're going to do a Warrior Wednesday, it looks like, and I've got some little warriors going to tell you some stories. I got one that made me laugh so hard I had to pull off the road the other day when I heard about it. So hang out with us next week on looks like a Wednesday, Warrior Wednesday here at Finish This Fight. Remember this, God loves you and Uncle Glenn loves you, and I'll see you on the other side.
Forward, halt, left, 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 right, your left, 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 right.
Arkansas boy with a lifelong plan took the oath like his old man, then turned around proud and shook his hand. L.A. kid stood right behind, took a deep breath and signed on the line, while tears streamed from his mama's eyes.